to today's lecture on chemical kinetics. To remind you of what we did in the last class, remember we were discussing elementary reactions. So, elementary reactions are those which are characterized being single step in nature and also going through a single transition state. And then we try to differentiate an elementary reaction from a complex or composite reaction, where we said that a composite reaction is made up of a series of steps of elementary reactions. After that, we looked at the energy profile, the meaning of an energy profile both for an elementary and a sample complex reaction, taking a specific example. From then on, we moved on to molecularity, where we said molecularity is nothing but the number of molecules based on the balanced chemical equation that is taking part in a specific elementary reaction. Molecularity is only applicable for elementary reactions, please keep that in mind. And for elementary reactions, the other defining feature is that molecularity, which is the number of molecules taking part in that elementary reaction, is equal to the overall order of the reaction. The difference being that molecularity is a theoretical quantity which by looking at the balanced chemical equation we can determine. On the other hand, order is an experimentally determined quantity, okay? And hence for elementary reactions both molecularity and order are the same. Then in the last part of the previous lecture, we were talking about complex reactions. How do you recognize or how do you realize that the reaction you have in hands is complex or composite in nature? So, one of the ways of doing it is by detection of reaction intermediates, as it is written on this piece of paper. Well, the moment you have an intermediate, what does it mean? That means it is at least having two steps, that means definitely more than one step. And remember, elementary reaction is a single step nature. So, if you have more than one step, it definitely will tell you that it is a complex reaction, okay. Then because it is having an intermediate, one of the ways obviously of making out whether this reaction is complex or not is to look at the presence or look for the presence of an intermediate. But do keep in mind that while there are intermediates which can be isolated, which can be easily looked at experimentally, many intermediates are very short lived, that means they do not exist for a long enough time. Hence, it might be very difficult for us to actually look at an intermediate just by normal experimental means. We might have to use advanced experimental methods to figure out whether the intermediate is really existing or not, okay. So, this was one of the ways of figuring out whether the reaction at hand is complex or composite in nature, that is by the identification or the existence of a reaction intermediate. The second way of doing it is by looking at the form of the experimental rate equation, which is written at the top. So, what we are saying is you look at the form of the experimental rate equation, that is what you are looking at, and then we showed this example. So, what is this example? So, this example is the reaction between hypochlorite ClO minus and iodide all in aqueous phases, giving as products chloride and hypoiodide. If the reaction had been elementary, so suppose nothing is told to you about the reaction, right, nothing is told to you, you look at this reaction, to you it seems like a simple enough reaction, right, and you can say that okay, then the rate should be just like as written out here, R is equal to K times the concentration of ClO minus times the concentration of I minus. Now, if this were an elementary reaction, that means if this reaction really was single step in nature, then this rate law is perfectly valid. Why? Because remember, by the definition of elementary reaction, I can just by looking at the balanced chemical equation write down the rate law, right. Also look at the molecularity, one molecule of ClO minus, one molecule of iodide. Now look at, so I should not be saying one molecule, but anyway. So now if you go to rate, the overall molecularity, that is 1 plus 1 is equal to the molecularity, which is 1 of ClO minus and 1 of I minus, is equal to the overall order, which is 1 plus 1 equal to 2. So, this is how you characterize an elementary reaction. Hence, again, if this reaction were really elementary, I could have said that K or a rate is equal to K times ClO minus times I minus, the concentrations of these. Now, remember, this is a theoretical one. That means, if this reaction had been elementary, I can write in this form. Now, let us do an experiment and try to figure out what the experimental rate law is in the real world. So, then after doing the experimentation, this is what we get. So, the rate law is actually, or the rate expression is actually given by this equation, where R, the rate, is equal to K, the rate constant, times the concentration of ClO minus, the concentration of I minus over the concentration of OH minus. Now, what you immediately realize is, if this had been elementary, then this is what you had said in the last piece of paper. But now you see there is OH minus coming in. OH minus did not figure in the stoichiometry of our reaction. So, this immediately tells you that the reaction is composite or complex in nature. So, that is why the name of this section or this part, how you determine whether a reaction is complex or not, by looking at the form of this experimental rate equation. So, you had thought that if this were elementary, this would be the rate law, but then experimentally the rate law that was determined was this, which is different from what you would expect if it were an elementary reaction. Hence, the reaction is composite or complex in nature. So, because this OH minus, which is coming in this rate equation, was nowhere there in the stoichiometry of the equation. Now, let us take another example. So, for example, so we have this equation 2Cu2 plus in aqueous phase plus H2 gas, giving you 2Cu plus aqueous plus 2H plus aqueous. Now, the observed rate law, the experimentally observed rate law. So, the experimentally observed rate law is given like this: R is equal to K times concentration of Cu2 plus squared times the concentration of H2 over K prime concentration of Cu2 plus plus K double prime concentration of H plus, okay, where K, K prime, K double prime are all constants, right. Now, this is the experimentally observed. So, remember, this rate law is the one which we have observed experimentally. So, this expression is obtained from carrying out experiments. Now, had the reaction been elementary, right, had the reaction been elementary, what would the rate expression be? So, the rate expression, had it been elementary, can be written as R is equal to, so now look at this equation. So, R is equal to K, our rate constant, then Cu2 plus squared times H2, had the reaction been elementary, right. So, we can write this rate expression straight away from the balanced chemical equation. So, this is, I can say that had the reaction been elementary, so had the reaction been an elementary reaction. But clearly it is not so. Why? Because the observed rate law, again the observed rate law, which is this, the observed rate law, which is this, is clearly different from the one you would have expected had the reaction been elementary in nature. So again the form of the rate expression tells you immediately whether the reaction is elementary or not, because elementary reactions, the rate laws or the rate expressions can be written directly from the balanced chemical equation. However, when you do experiments you might end up having a different rate law, and if the rate law is different from the one you are expecting from being an elementary reaction, then you immediately understand that this is a composite reaction. So now you can say then the reaction is a composite reaction, or one having a complex mechanism. Now suppose let's take another, or let's have another way of looking at it. Since you are dealing with an elementary reaction and you have written the rate law based on your thought that this reaction might be an elementary one, what would tell you from this rate law, if the reaction had been an elementary one, that this actually might not be an elementary reaction, this is a composite reaction? I will reframe my question, right. Let me repeat my question again, probably I was not clear. What I wanted to say was that looking at this rate law which you have written down, or the rate expression which you have written down, by supposing that the reaction went in an elementary form, that is through single step, single transition step, would you be right or would you be correct in writing this elementary reaction? Your initial thought would be no, and this is the reason why. So remember, in elementary reaction molecularity and overall order are the same, okay. Now going back to this equation, how many molecules are you talking about? 2 of CO2 plus, or how many species? 2 of CO2 plus and 1 of H2. So that means had the reaction been an elementary one, I would have said that this is a termolecular reaction where I have 2 species of CO2 plus reacting with 1 of H2. But see, unimolecular reactions are okay because I have only one molecule. Bimolecular reactions are still okay because I have 2 molecules which I have to collide simultaneously. But think about a termolecular reaction and above. For us it is very hard to imagine that at the same time all the 3 molecules will collide to give rise to your product, which means if this had been a single step reaction, then 3 species, one CO2 plus, another CO2 plus and H2, all these three would have to collide simultaneously, so that the reaction is single step in nature, and the moment the reaction is single step it means it is an elementary reaction. But for termolecular reactions and above it is very difficult to have all the 3 species or all the 3 molecules collide at the same time. It is not that termolecular reactions do not exist, yes they do exist, but then hopefully you understand by now that for unimolecular reaction we have collisions between the same molecules, for bimolecular reactions we have collisions between 2 molecules, they have to collide at the same time. For a single step reaction, for the reaction being elementary, while we go for termolecular and higher molecular reactions, it is very difficult to conceive the fact that all the 3 molecules will be coming together and colliding at the same time. Hence, the probability of thermomolecular reactions and above, that means the probability of 3 molecules or more colliding at the same time to go through a single step reaction and give rise to your products decreases. And hence, just by looking at the form of this reaction, and just by thinking about the reaction in terms of an elementary rate law, it gives you an idea, or it gives you a hint that maybe, without knowing anything even, that maybe the reaction is not elementary in nature. There is a good chance that the reaction can be a composite or complex one involving multiple steps, at least more than one step. So, again the rate law or the experimentally determined rate expression gives you loads of information, not only in terms of what or how the rate depends upon the respective concentrations, but also tells you whether my reaction is supposed to be a single step one, or it would rather take place in multiple steps. So, this is one of the best ways of figuring out whether the reaction you are considering, or the one in your hands, is composite or elementary in nature. So, please keep this in mind. One was the detection of the reaction intermediates, and the second one was by looking at the rate law. Now, for example, let us take another another thing, another example. So, let us go for this example now. We have already considered 2 examples. So, this would be a third example. So, the third example is this equation 2N2O5, right, giving you 4NO2 plus O2, right. Now, the experimentally determined rate law for this one goes like this: R is equal to K times N2O5. So, this is experimental, right, but had the reaction been elementary in nature, so R would have been equal to K in 2O5 raised to the power 2. So, that is the overall order 2 is equal to the molecularity of the reaction which we get from the balanced form of the equation. So, this is when we say that if it had been an elementary reaction, which immediately tells you then that this reaction is a composite or complex reaction. So, like this many examples can be given, but the idea was for you to be able to figure out whether the reaction given in front of you is supposed to be a complex one, that is involving a series of elementary steps, or is supposed to be a single step reaction, which then it would be referred to as an elementary reaction, where the order of the reaction is equal to the molecularity of the reaction. Okay. Now, let us talk about something which is also very fundamental to this reaction mechanism. It is called rate limiting step or rate determining step. Okay. So, this concept again is of fundamental and central importance in case of reaction mechanisms. We will soon figure out what we mean by this. Suppose we consider a series of elementary reactions. What are the reactions like? Say the reactions are A going to X, this is an elementary reaction, say step 1 of a reaction, and say this is the rate constant, or the rate of this is R is equal to, say this is the rate constant is K1 times A. Next, X goes to Y, the rate constant for this transformation is K2, and this reaction again being elementary is equal to R given as this. And finally, we have Y going to P, where P is the product, this is K3, and so if this is R1, this is R2, this is R3, we say this is K3 times the concentration of Y. Okay. So, each of these steps or each of these reactions is an elementary reaction. Now, when I add these up, so when I add all these up, you can see X and X would cancel out, Y and Y would cancel out. So, I will be left with the actual equation A going to P. Now, this is the question you are asking. If this conversion from A to P or reaction from A going to P is definitely composite in nature, because it is constituted of 3 distinct elementary reactions. Now, each elementary reaction is given by the corresponding rate expression R1, R2, R3. Each elementary reaction, A going to X, X going to Y, Y going to P, they are having different rates, and even before that you realize that X and Y are intermediates, because they finally do not appear in the balanced equation. Now, as I was saying before, each of these, so let me write it here. See, each step has its own rate. Each elementary reaction, that means each step being an elementary reaction has its own rate. So, the next question that comes to your mind is, really, if my composite reaction or my complex reaction mechanism is composed of 3 such elementary steps, and each elementary step is having its own rate, then what will my final rate rate of the equation A going to P or the reaction A going to be depend upon? It can depend upon A going to X, it can depend upon X going to Y, it can depend upon Y going to P, right. So, the question again you are asking is, if I am having a series of consecutive steps which leads to my final equation A going to P, how would I know on what my rate of this conversion from A to P will be based on? Why? Because suppose you are going to follow your reaction by looking at the product P, right, then the formation of product P is going to depend upon Y. So, the formation of Y is going to depend upon X, and the formation of X is going to depend upon A. So, keeping this thing in mind, if you were trying to analyze the reaction by looking at the formation of the product P of P, it would be difficult and complex. Why? Because the formation of P depends on Y. Now, the formation of Y depends on the formation of X, and the formation of X now depends on A, right. So, P depends upon Y, you see P is depending upon Y, then I said Y depends upon X, see Y is not depending upon the formation of X. Similarly, x will depend upon how it is found from A. Hence, T is dependent upon y, which in turn is dependent upon x, which in turn is dependent upon A. This tells you that this is quite a complicated, it's quite a complicated picture. Okay. So, this you should read as complicated. So, let me write it again. This is quite a complicated picture. But see, you also know that many rate laws or many rate expressions are quite simple, then the question is, how do we decide on which step the final rate of reaction will depend upon, because in these 3 consecutive reactions which have their own rates, you do not know how each of these contribute to the final equation, which is A going to P. But then, as I said, though it is complicated, many rate expressions are quite simple for you to deal with. Thus, there must be a proper way of deciding that, okay, this step, maybe step 1 or step 2 or step 3 will tell you or will finally determine the overall rate of this transformation of A going to P. So, let us now think about this in a little different manner. So, how do we think about this? Suppose one day you have to go to a friend's place from your house, right, and then you have to traverse a road. You go through a road, say you are taking your car, or you are going you are traveling in a bus, or you are traveling in some other mode of communication, mode of transport. Let us consider that this is your home, right, and say this is your friend's home, right. So, you have to go from here to here. Now, as it happens, one of the ways or one of the paths will go like this. Suppose from here you have a very broad road, okay. Then in between, for some reason, the road becomes very narrow for say a certain stretch, say 1 or 2 kilometers, and then again it widens up and your friend's home is somewhere here, okay. So, just take this as a sample road trip you are taking from your home to your friend's house or friend's place. Now, see, if you are starting from here, since the road is wide enough in this stretch, then you will see the cars will travel pretty fast, right. The cars will travel pretty fast, but the problem is, the moment they come to this place, the moment they come to this place, here a different thing happens. Now, the cars have to slow down. Why? Because initially the road was pretty wide, broad, the width of the road was big enough, but that many cars could go side by side at a decent speed. But the moment the road narrows out here, see what happens. you see it has become very narrow. Say at this stretch only cars in one line can go through. After that again it starts widening out, hence the cars can again maintain their speeds. Okay. Now let us think about this in terms of your chemical reaction. Suppose this is step 1, right, suppose this is step 1, okay, suppose this is step 1, this is step 2 and this is step 3. It is very visible from this example that in steps 1 and 3 the cars would be travelling at a very good speed, say high speed, but the moment you come to step 2, what has happened is the cars had to slow down, they had no other option because there was no road, the road available was very narrow. So the total time they took, that means the rate at which you could leave your home and go to and reach your friend's place was not determined by steps 1 and 2, but it was determined by step it was not determined by steps 1 and 3, but it was determined by step 2, because this is the part which was the slowest stretch in terms of travel from your home to your friend's place. So we say that if this, if this is the slowest step, then slowest step, then this is also referred to as the rate determining step or rate limiting step. The other way of looking at it is, or the other commonly used word for this one is called a bottleneck. Why is it called a bottleneck? So if you do not look at this, if you think about this with the bottom, it looks like a bottle, isn't it? So what happens in a bottle? There is a wide base, cylindrical, going like this, and then at the top the bottle becomes narrow, right. So you have a wide base like this, then the bottle is a cylindrical, and then out at the top it narrows down, it tapers down. That is the neck of the bottle, and that is why it is called the bottleneck. So the bottleneck, wherever you face a bottleneck, this bottleneck is the slowest step, right. This bottleneck being the slowest step, it determines at which rate you are going to go from this place to the other place, which is a friend's place. Or in terms of a chemical reaction, if I have 3 distinct steps, steps 1, 2 and 3, then the slowest step, which in this case say is step 2, would finally determine which, at what rate the reaction would be moving from the reactant side to the product side. It does not matter at all how fast steps 1 and 3 are, it does not matter. Why? Because these are very fast. Anyway, where do I face the bottleneck? I face the bottleneck in step 2. So wherever I have a bottleneck, that means whichever step is the bottleneck, that means whichever step is the slowest step in a series of consecutive steps would give me the rate of the reaction or the rate of your road trip in this case. The other steps do not matter at all. So this is extremely important in terms of the reaction mechanism, because when you have again many steps and you are trying to figure out what would the rate depend upon or what would the actual rate be, then you would soon realize that because my rate depends upon the bottleneck step, that means the step which is the slowest one. So my rate expression would also be determined by the slowest step and not by any of the other steps which are faster than this slower one. Okay. So hopefully I have been able to impress upon you what a rate determining step means. The rate determining step is the one which poses the bottleneck. The bottleneck is the place where the rate is the slowest, and because the rate is the slowest out here, this is the one, I repeat, this is the one which determines the final rate of your reaction going from A to P. So this is extremely important to remember, right. So now going back to our series of elementary steps here. Say if I go back to the series of elementary steps, right, I do not know now which one is the rate determining step. Now suppose I tell you that fine, let the rate determining step be the first one, let the rate determining step be the first one. If the rate determining step is the first one in the series of reactions, then it immediately falls out that for the series of reactions finally A going to P, that means I have A going to P, which is made up of these 3 steps, elementary steps, then the rate is equal to K1 times concentration of A, because the step A going to X was the slowest step or the rate determining step. And let me also write this here, it does not matter how fast, it does not matter how fast the other steps are. So step 1 of the reaction is the slowest one, the other 2 are faster than this, hence the rate of the reaction is decided by this step only, the other 2 steps do not matter at all. I hope been able to make myself clear in terms of what would finally determine the rate of a reaction, especially in case of a multi-step process or a complex reaction as written out here. And again I can then write if the first step is the rate determining step, determining, if the first step is the rate determining step, then the rate of the overall reaction will only depend on the first step. So, that is important. If the first step is the rate determining step, okay, then the rate of reaction will only depend on the first step. The other 2 steps in this case, no matter how fast they are, will not matter at all. So, as usual, let us take an example. So, let us have this 3 ClO minus going to ClO3 minus equals phase plus 2 Cl minus aqueous. Okay. The proposed reaction mechanism goes like this, that ClO minus plus ClO minus me ClO2 minus plus Cl minus, then ClO2 minus plus ClO minus gives me ClO3 minus plus Cl minus. Okay. Again you cross check, ClO2 minus is the intermediate. So, if you add these 2 reactions, you should be getting back the balanced chemical equation, right. So, this is the proposed reaction mechanism, right. So, this word is very important, this is the proposed reaction mechanism. If step 1 is rate limiting, that means this is step 1, if step 1 is rate limiting, okay, then I can write for step 1 being the rate limiting step or the rate determining step. So, this was step 1, then R would be K ClO minus ClO minus, or R is K ClO minus squared, okay, if the first step is the rate limiting one. Now, indeed the experimentally observed one, so R experimental is equal to K ClO minus squared. So, what does this tell you? So, what it tells you that whatever equation we observed experimentally and the proposed reaction mechanism, the reaction mechanism is a plausible one, because why is it plausible? The reaction mechanism is plausible, or the proposed means it is plausible. So, I can say that it is a plausible reaction mechanism. Why do we say so? Because if this were, if this were the rate limiting step, if this were the rate limiting step, then the R would have been predicted to be K times ClO minus square, right. This being an elementary step, overall order is equal to the molecular order of the reaction. Also from experiment we get the same rate expression, hence I repeat, hence the word plausible. That means whatever reaction mechanism is plausible, because the rate expression we predict from the steps of the reaction mechanism does follow the one which is observed experimentally as given here. Let us do another example real quick since we are on this. 2NO2 gas plus F2 gas gives me 2NO2F gas, right. Okay. Experimentally, so let me write R experimental is K NO2 times concentration of F2. So, this is R experimental, right. Now, what about the proposed reaction mechanism? So, the proposed mechanism goes like this: NO2 plus F2 gives me NO2 plus F, then NO2 plus F gives me NO2 F. I should be writing another F out here. So, there are two steps to this reaction. The first step is NO2 plus F2 giving me NO2F plus F, then NO2 plus F giving me NO2F. The first check is you add these two up, what you see is you get 2NO2 plus F2 giving you 2NO2F, right. So, hence when I add this up I get back the balanced chemical equation. Now, you are also the proposed mechanism, you are saying that this is the slow step. So, if this is a slow step, then you immediately realize I can write R is equal to K times NO2 F2, and the moment I have written that, I see that this form does agree with the one observed experimentally, hence the proposed mechanism is a plausible one. So, I can say this one is a plausible. So, this one is a plausible mechanism, okay, just because of the fact that my predicted rate expression based on the proposed mechanism does agree with that observed experimentally. So, this is important. Now, one of the characteristic features you have seen out here is for this reaction, or even as a matter of fact for the reaction we did before, which was this one, the first step was the slow step. So, this one was the slow step. So, the first step was a slow step for this reaction, and for this reaction again the first step was a slow step. Now, just to give you an example, you do not have to worry about it. Would you have all reactions where the first step is or do all reactions have the first step as a slow step? Not necessarily, right? Reactions are complicated in nature, there are so many reactions out there, and there will be many reactions where the first step will not be the slow step. Now, what do we do in that case, or can we look at that in a different way? How do we write the rate law? So, let us take an example. This for you is just to understand, let us not go into the details of it. I will write some of the things down, but I will not explain everything which you will soon see, but this is for you to understand what happens if the first step is not the rate determining step as we have been doing out here, right. So, let us take an example like that. Okay. So, here what we say is then that the first step is not rate determining. The first step is not rate determining, that is an example we are going to look at. Okay. So, suppose I have this reaction A plus B going to products, right, and I am told that a proposed mechanism is as follows: A going to X, right, and then B plus X going to P. Now, because the first step is not rate determining, it immediately tells me that if the first step is not rate determining and there are two steps, then the second step has to be rate determining, right, that means a slow step, right. If that is the case, then my proposed rate law becomes R is equal to, say if this is okay, if this is K1, this is K2 times concentration of B times concentration of X. Now, this is absolutely fine, right. My second step is my rate determining step, and what I am writing is I am writing this in terms of the concentration of B of concentration of X. See, where does the problem lie? The problem is here that the B is a reactant, okay, it is a reactant, good. However, what about X? If you look at the two steps, step 1 and step 2, then A goes to X, then B plus X going to P, and if I sum it, I get A plus B going to P. So, X does not appear out there, which means X is an intermediate. Now, we have already discussed before a bit that all intermediates cannot be isolated, all intermediates are not easy to handle and cannot be easily observed experimentally. Hence, it is better for us not to write a rate expression involving an intermediate as much as possible. We try to avoid any intermediates in the final rate expression. Now, how do we do that? So, what we do is we propose a mechanism such that this X does not feature in the rate expression, and how do we do that? So, this is where I said I will not go into the details, but I will just show you the example so that you have a better feeling of the same. So, what we say is that okay, we will still go by this, okay, we will still go by this two steps, A going to X and B plus X going to P. We will make a slight change. What is this change? Change is as follows: A goes to X and we give it an equilibrium sign. So, what we say is that this is K1, this is K minus 1, and we call this the first step as a fast pre equilibrium step, okay, as a fast pre equilibrium step. Then obviously the next step is what? B plus x going to P, and this is K2. And remember, because this is the slow step or the rate determining step which many books you will see will write as RDS, the rate determining step RDS, then the rate law is K2 x as we had written in the previous slide. But is there a way to replace x out? Is there a way to replace x out? Let us look at this A in equilibrium with x. So what happens is, at equilibrium, if you look at step 1, right. So if this is step 1, this is step 2, then I can write from step 1, which is A in equilibrium with x, fast pre-equilibrium, K1 and K minus 1. So what is K1? K1 is the rate constant for the forward reaction, K minus 1 is the rate constant for the backward reaction. At equilibrium, remember we are considering step 1 here only. At equilibrium, what happens? The rate of the forward reaction is equal to the rate of the backward reaction, isn't it? So what is the rate of the forward reaction? So in both directions rates are elementary in nature, I mean these are elementary in nature, the reactions are, okay. So the rate of the forward reaction is K1 times concentration of A, and the rate of the backward reaction is equal to K minus 1 times concentration of X, okay. And because this is so, you see we immediately have the expression of X, or the X written in terms of K1 over K minus 1 into concentration of A. Now this is an extremely important step. Also remember, if this is an equilibrium situation, then I am going to have an equilibrium constant. So the equilibrium constant can be the big K, the K equilibrium constant. The K equilibrium constant from this one is what? Is equal to concentration of X over concentration of A, right, which is equal to K1 over K minus 1. So you see you have two forms, two very interesting forms. One is this and the second one is this. Now by doing this, what you have done is, if you go back to a rate determining step which determined my proposed rate law, which is K2 times B times X, this X had to be replaced. Now based on this pre-equilibrium concentration, what do I have? I have X is equal to K1 over K minus 1 into A. Then what I do is I take this and replace X by this expression. That means now my rate becomes, so rate was K2 times concentration of B times concentration of X. Now based on the fact that I have X is equal to this, then I can write R is equal to K2 times concentration of B. Now by concentration of X I replace K1 over K minus 1 concentration of A, or R is equal to then K2 K1 K minus 1 concentration of B concentration of A, right. So this is also K equilibrium, right. So then the other form is that R is equal to K2 K equilibrium concentration of A concentration of B. Hence I gave you an example where the first step was not rate limiting, some other subsequent step was, and in that case if an intermediate is coming in, then I assume something referred to as this fast pre-equilibrium, and using that I replace the intermediate by something which is in terms of reactant, which is more easy to handle for us, which we can readily handle. This I did not explain too much about fast pre-equilibrium, but just to give you the flavor of what types of different complex reactions can come in, different complications can come in. One, I can have a fast first step which is rate determining. In this case it is a second step, that means in this case the second step, but not the first step which is rate determining, and then it becomes more complicated, and then say go on to give rise or go on to propose a different sort of rate or a different sort of mechanism, right. I hope I have been able to impress upon you the importance of this rate determining step and how reaction mechanisms, plausible reaction mechanisms can be devised. Just some examples to to make sure that the proposed one is in agreement with the observed rate expression. Thank you.